This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Jason of House Ross, Sir Jared of House Blackfire, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam the Young Bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, the Ghost of Harrenhal, Lord Nelson of the Long Isle, the Mother of Cats, Sir Joshua of House Ross, Lady Kendall of House Taylor, Lady Liz of House Hendricks, Lady Erin of House Hickman, Lady Juliana of House Stardman, Lady Kari of House Johnson, Sir Matthew of House Perry, Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, Captain of the Guard, Sir Ron of House Golson, Captain of the Guard, Lord Robert the Unfrozen of House Butler, Lord Paramount of Skagos Island, Captain of the Guard.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra, the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into Tyrion 9 of A Game of Thrones, and in the Maester study we are covering the Inn at the Crossroads, which we frequent from time to time.
We frequent it a lot, really. It's pretty much really is a central location.
Yeah.
But man, I actually forgot that this chapter took place there until I was, reading it, and you had kind of reminded me. I was like, wait, this is at the Inn at the Crossroads? I'm like, oh yeah, it is. Because
Yeah.
in the show, it's like an encampment. They're just kind of hanging out. But
Right. Yeah, it's wild. We do kind of forget, how important it is, and it being a crossroads and the strategic location that it provides. Someone who occupies it, I guess, is important.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's why Tywin is there, and so yeah, there's like literally only like two subtle mentions that's where they're at, but pretty interesting. So we'll talk about that in the Maester study a bit more. But how you been, man?
Man, I'm good. I was on vacation there last week. We were sometimes Sir Ezra and I record a little bit ahead of time, so we didn't record last week because we had recorded 2 episodes. Man, I went to Vegas.
Yeah,
it was good. I saw some Game of Thrones slot machines. Did not play any because I'm not really big into gambling. Was the Uber we used was like a karaoke Uber? Did I send you pictures of that?
Yeah, you did. Yes.
Yeah. It was super cool. It was awesome. So we have like the guy's number. So, like he's like, yeah, if you're ever in Vegas again, hit me up. I was like, all right, man, I will. So,
Awesome.
just awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. So you didn't hit it big, or are you just not telling me? What happened?
No, I didn't. I unfortunately did. I unfortunately did not hit it big. So
Okay. Well, all right. I guess we're gonna have to. Well, we said if you hit it big anyways, we were gonna keep podcasting. So we're just gonna go to the next level. But
yeah. Oh well, absolutely. Oh, and I do want to give a shout out. I'm just pulling it up here. I need to remember her, Kate. So if you're listening, Kate, shout out. I'm a talker. And so. And so I was on the plane, and so some people use that term like chatty Cathy, right? Like, sometimes you get on a plane, you sit next to like a chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
Well, so that's me, and then I was also sitting next to a woman who was also like, she's like, oh, I'm a really chatty person too. So we talked the whole time, and she really listens to a lot of podcasts, and so we kind of got into the subject, and so anyway, I told her I'd give her a shout out. So there you go.
That's awesome. I think the individual also encouraged us in other aspects of the podcasting world, if I remember you telling me that correctly, but we'll get to that in a second here.
Well, yep.
So, but yeah, okay, cool. Glad that you were also at a concert last night, weren't you?
Went to a concert last night. Ben Folds and Cake.
All right.
I'm quite unfamiliar with both bands. Cake had like a hit in like I think it was like 2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it was
That's cool. I mean, from what I heard, it was a couple unknown bands. It was Misty /
I wouldn't
Rainy.
say they're unknown. I just don't think they're not like enormous bands.
Okay. Well, still fitting all in with the theme of Portland there. Bands kind of blowing up and then becoming big, and yeah, so that's cool. That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, so yeah, Sir Matt's been out doing. He's gone on vacation. He's doing all this fun stuff. Sir Ezra's just sitting over here, still in cat therapy. Just
yeah. How are the cats, man?
They're getting bigger, man. They're running around. They're good. They're good.
What have they been named yet?
Yes, they were named. So we have Sophie and Peaches.
And Peaches. Okay, so not Sophie and Sophie.
Right. Yep. So it was surprising too. So we got the first one automatically. We knew it was going to be Sophie. So first one she saw was Sophie, and the next one took her about 2 seconds. My niece to kind of come up with a name. She's like, Peaches, and I was like, okay, cool.
Cool.
So Sophie and Peaches are on the back porch doing their thing right now. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, but yeah, other than that, I've been, twiddling my thumbs, reading book series, getting fired up for things to come.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh, I don't even know how to say this. I don't even know how to talk about this, but we just did a massive sort of, I might as well call it what it is, business meeting, okay? A little podcast.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, yeah.
We sit around, we have our own council, and I imagine... I don't know which one we are in the scenario here, but when Dunk's out riding around on his horse, Thunder, I just imagine he's having a talk with his horse. So I don't know if I'm the horse and you're Sir Dunk or what the deal is here, but it was a good chat, and we were talking about just direction, what we're doing. We're getting pumped. We're getting excited. I honestly can't contain my excitement for one of the major decisions that we made in the last couple weeks in terms of podcasting.
Sir Ezra and I are working on our Marvel Cinematic Universe-esque timeline for things that are coming, whether it's content on this show or content on other shows that we're working on, and we feel really, really good about where we're going because we've been talking a lot. Today we're in Tyrion 9. There's like 3 chapters left, and we'll be done with the first book at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So we're like, we need to kind of map out exactly how we want to get into Clash of Kings. What do we want to do? All that kind of stuff. So we kind of have that coming. Stay tuned for that. We have a Raven's Nest planned. So just a lot of content going to be coming here shortly.
Yeah,
kind of stay tuned. Unless you want to talk about it all right now, Sir Ezra.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, I mean, I kind of do just a little. We have a shorter chapter, and
it's true.
I'm throwing a curveball at Sir Matt here, and he knows it. But because we just talked about it, it's fresh, and we're excited about it. Like, there's so many things in A Song of Ice and Fire that we want to cover. We don't want to do just a cursory overview of stuff. I mean, like, we could go so much deeper sometimes with the chapter. We could talk about for example, I think it's next chapter. There's when is it? One of the Mormont's raven is like pecking at an egg, and it cracks open an egg, right? And Danny's dragon eggs are gonna open up, and then it's connections like that between chapters that we don't often talk about. We often are focused so much just in the chapter, what happens inside that chapter, and sometimes we make ties to other, like, distant chapters, other books. But I'm noticing that George puts things in order for a reason. He kind of puts those Danny chapters, he spaces them. He didn't just like randomly say, yeah, I'm going to spread this out and do it this way. Everything's connected for a reason. And so it's there's just so much there that we want to go back to some stuff that we hadn't finished, I guess, a little bit.
It's true.
That's some of what we were looking at. Like, when you have unfinished business, it just weighs on your mind, and you want to go back, you want to finish it, and you want to be.
So, I mean, should we just go ahead and say it? What our plan is at this point? Okay. So here's so first and foremost, let me give an enormous shout out to the people in our. I know we do this all the time. But we have a lot of people in the group that are like just help out with a lot of things, like Lord Adam Parker, and Magnum. You guys have really helped run kind of the the Facebook page. You guys are running polls, stuff like that. It's great. You got Sir Robert over there running like polls, and so like that's huge. That's been an enormous help. Like because as the podcast gets bigger, there's just a lot more stuff.
Yes, Sir Ant kind of, with the Discord chat.
Right, absolutely. It's awesome. So. It's really cool. So one of the things we have kind of coming, and we've teased it a little bit, I think, on Instagram. And I don't really want to like throw it all out because he's like going at his own pace, and that's awesome. Sir Jimmy, who's kind of working on our. Should I say it?
Say it. Yeah.
Okay. So he's kind of working on a website for us. And one of the things he's been doing a little bit of testing, and he's literally doing all this like on his own. He just hit us up and was like, "Hey guys, can I design a website for you?" We're like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
So like an enormous shout out to him because he's designing, and he's like working on a feature to make it just easier to send a Raven. Like you can he send it like through like the website that he's working on, which is really awesome. And so, there's a lot of stuff that's being worked on right now, and so Sir Ezra and I we're sitting around thinking, and we kind of did a map. We said, okay, so we're about to be done with the first book, right? Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. So, when exactly do we want to start Clash of Kings? Do we start right away? We had tossed around the idea of, well, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to say it. Mm-hmm. I want to start Clash of Kings on January 1st, which I know seems like a ways away. Mm-hmm. But I just think a lot of people, because we have so many people sending us Ravens saying, I can't wait to like jump back into the books.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and a lot of people are like, I'll kind of wait until you start Clash of Kings. And so on one hand, I'm like, well, it's really far away. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I'm also like, it's also like the perfect time to start because right now, I think a lot of those people that are like, oh, I can't wait to start the books, like starting a book at the end of the year, right? And Clash of Kings is, I think, the second, just in terms of just how I think it runs.
Yeah. Vast.
I think I would almost argue that Clash of Kings is the hardest book to read. And just in my opinion, because A Dance with Dragons and A Feast for Crows it's like one big book. Like you really need to read it together. Mm-hmm. And like I think they're actually easier to read than a Clash of Kings because you get like half the characters, so you really just see their arc. So it's a lot easier.
Well, yeah.
Whereas a Clash of Kings is enormous. A Clash of Kings was 2 seasons of the show. It was the only book that got multiple seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and can I just jump in real quick to help with the
absolutely
like how it's almost like when you're in Feast and Dance, like you kind of stick with a character. You don't bounce away from a character for a long time and then come to other characters. You're either in one place or you're in the other, and you see it's not as hard to. You don't get lost when you move from point of views. When you go from one point of view chapter to the next point of view chapter, and then it's like, when do you come back to the point of view chapter that you just read? When do you pick back up with John, for example, or whoever? In a Clash, people spread out. It's like people really start to spread out, and I know that they will continue to be spread out through the series. But this is where George takes his threads and just goes nuts. In these last 4 chapters, I mean, the references that he makes to House Tyrell and the Baratheons, what's going on with them, the rising of these kings, a shadow binder coming in, all this kind of stuff. So now you have a huge Essos. We already had Dany there, but now we're getting talk of the free cities and all this kind of stuff. And think about this too. I mean, the White Walkers become a much bigger deal. You have the comet that sets everybody off talking. Now it's like prophecy steps in. Right, yep. I mean, Melisandre and Stannis. It goes from simply, John just goes kind of to the wall, and like we only see the others in the first chapter, and then he fights the one white, and then I mean, it's really mostly like what's going on in King's Landing and the beginnings of war. Whereas a Clash of Kings is all over the place. Yeah,
I mean, it's You
got to really follow along. Yeah.
It's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, you've got characters like Patchface. You've got characters like, I mean, Arya's out on the lam, because a lot of characters were put together. Like Arya and Sansa were pretty much always together up until about like a chapter or two ago. But really they're pretty much together, or like they would be in Eddard chapters. Well, now it's like everybody. This is where it really kind of expands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So part of my thing is I think for a lot of people, starting a book during the holiday seasons is going to be hard.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I mean, with that, we're just thinking about going back to some unfinished business, right?
Right. Exactly. That's another thing too. Is now it's like, are we ever going to have if you guys remember, many episodes ago, it was about a year. It was, I don't know, how long ago was it when we kind of finished A World of Ice and Fire?
Oh boy,
air quote finished A World of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, because we didn't finish it. It was definitely last year. Right?
I think it was when Fire and Blood were coming out.
Yeah, that's right. It was almost like fall. It was almost a year from now.
Exactly. And so we didn't actually finish World of Ice and Fire. We finished all of everything in Westeros, but there's still quite a bit left. So that was one thing we were talking about. We're like, this would be a good opportunity to kind of finish up some of that World of Ice and Fire stuff. And it's not like we're just not posting content. We're definitely still posting episodes every week. So it's none of that. And we still have a few chapters to get through, and then we want to do a Raven's Nest that's kind of like a recap of the first book. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff to get geared on. So there's still going to be episodes. There's just going to be chapters of Clash of Kings just yet.
Yeah, we're just kind of holding off on that for a little bit. So we're diving back into the World of Ice and Fire book possibly, and we're going to head over to Essos and check out a few things there, and basically do like a bigger Maester study, and then we will answer Ravens. It's almost like for the next couple months we're going to have Follow-Up Friday back, except for we're going to be conducting all of that through Raven's Nest, through Ravens at the end of the show.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, it just means, hey, we're going to kind of do Follow-Up Friday for a little bit here as we get ready for Clash of Kings.
Yep.
So I hope that, I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that are like, yes. So.
Yeah. And that's, I'm excited because we're going to get essentially the show kind of, if you were around when we did Follow-Up Friday, people loved it because they got to hear their Raven read and discussed on the show.
Right. I mean, we do this. We still do this at the end of the episodes, but it was just an entire episode dedicated to those.
Right. So we're going to go from reading about one Raven right now. We do about 1 to 2 a show, to 5 to 6. You know, it's sort of like depending on how many we have, and even some of the old ones that we have kind of shelved, and we've put stuff in a folder for Clash of Kings, and we've got theory Ravens, we've got all sorts of stuff. So we have a bunch already, but we would love to, have you guys send us some. And I think we should tell people like the day we record too, because people like to send stuff in right before we record, and they like to disrupt us.
It's
what I mean? Like
we've done
comes in
back
like, oh god, we
used to record Follow-Up Fridays on Thursdays. And then post on Fridays, and I think there's 1 or 2 Follow-Up Fridays where somebody sent us a Raven, like as we were recording. We're just like, okay, well, let's add it in. Now we record on. Well, we've always recorded this episode, like the main show, Sunday mornings. And so, if you want to get your Raven read, make sure to send it to us by at least Sunday morning Pacific time. Like 10 a.m. Pacific time, whatever that is somewhere else.
Yeah. Another thing we've thought about doing as well is sort of, since that's the time that we record, and if we're shifting things a little bit, one thing that I thought we would try is we kind of have this like a pre-show chat where it's just, we're just kind of, I'll just say it, we're just shooting the shit. We're just kind of getting ready for stuff, and some people wanted to hop into Discord and listen to that and stuff. So we might start posting our actual record times and let you guys come and just listen in. And it's another way to influence the show. If you've got extra thoughts on the region that we're covering in Essos, or if you've got just thoughts on the Raven that's being read, things like that, it's kind of a neat way for you to hear what's happening. It's not the best quality because my internet sucks right now, but it would still be kind of fun way to interact and things. So
yeah, absolutely.
But really, Sir Matt, the big news and this is. I'm just going to read this. Okay, I'm going to read it. I want the realm to know. I want the realm to know. Okay, quote: "Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time." End quote. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. I just want it to be known. It's quoted. If you want some more teaser stuff, if you're wondering what's going on with Sir Matt and Sir Ezra, go check out Twitter. Head over to Twitter. You can find me at Womprat_2M, and you can find Sir Matt at Super Gains Bros. So we've got some teasing going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm going to say.
Woo! All right, man.
All right, where do we go from here?
I think we just well, there's not really much news going on. So, and I think we just kind of hit small council. So I say we just jump right into it because we do have a large Raven to read. So.
Okay, sweet. Okay, awesome. Let's so real quickly, I said we in the Maester study we would kind of talk about the Inn at the Crossroads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just briefly. So we know it's a place that we frequent. It is, if you want to know where it's at location-wise. So in this chapter, I always like to tie it in here. Tywin is trying to figure out whether he goes back to the Rock, or does he go down to King's Landing, or where does he go? Does he go to Harrenhal? What's the plan? So he's looking at different locations and trying to figure out what to do. Harrenhal is a cursed place, right? They don't really want to go there. Some people don't want him to go there. So they try to dissuade him. But the Inn at the Crossroads is just north of Harrenhal, if you want that for reference, north of the God's Eye and what have you. And it's kind of, let's see, it's just east of River Run. And so when you look at the Battle of the Camps and you look at all these different battles that took place at the Green Fork, it's interesting to see how the young wolf kind of outmaneuvered Tywin in this, and how he was able to keep him, I guess, focused. I mean, Jaime had no clue that what was coming, and then Tywin's kind of, chilling out there looking for a force coming down the King's Road that doesn't actually come down the King's Road. So it's just interesting when you on a map put these individuals and these characters down and sort of see where their armies are. But so it lies between the Inn at the Crossroads, or Crossroad Inn, is an inn that lies at the crossroads between the King's Road running north, south, the River Road west through the Westlands. Through the Riverlands to the Westlands, and the High Road east to the Vale of Arryn. So there you go. So you've got the High Road going to the east over to the Vale, and then you've got the West Road, which is the River Road, which is heading west to the Riverlands. So kind of those big highways, if you will, in Westeros. So it's sometimes called the Old Inn, and was formerly named the Two Crowns, the Bellringer Inn, the Clanking Dragon, and the River Inn. So there's some history to it. There's some stuff during the it's in the Blackfire Rebellion.
It's in
It's
Duncan
mentioned
Egg.
there. Yeah, exactly. So it's been around for a long time and has quite an interesting history. Let's see. The inn has existed at this spot, anyways, for hundreds of years. The current inn was raised during the reign of King Jaehaerys the First, who built the King's Road. So we talked about all the accomplishments when we were doing A World of Ice and Fire, and then even more so when we did Fire and Blood. We got huge chapters on Jaehaerys, the Old King, and we learned a lot about what happened during his reign. Because remember, it was one paragraph or whatever in A World of Ice and Fire, but then we got much more. So yeah, he and Queen Alysanne Targaryen stayed there, and the inn was named the Two Crowns in their honor. After one of the innkeeps built the bell tower, the name was changed to the Bellring Inn. The inn eventually passed into the hands of Long John Heddle, or Heedle, however you say it, a knight who had been crippled. John, who'd taken up ironworking in his old age, forged a new sign to hang in the yard, a three-headed black iron dragon. The inn became known as the clanking dragon for the noise, the sound made in the wind. So there's a little bit of the evolution of how its name has changed over time. It's always been at this spot, but it's come under different ownership and has therefore gotten different names. The inn became known as the River Inn since the Trident flowed beneath its back door, and half its rooms were built out over the water. It was said that the inn's guests could throw a line out their window and catch fish. There was also a ferry landing at the end where travelers could cross over to Lord Harroway's town and to White Walls. So, yeah, I mean, interesting. Masha is the owner. When we start a Game of Thrones, we know what happens to her. We've seen her when Tyrion showed up here originally. He saw that she had been hung outside, basically for allowing. Tywin does this because Tyrion was taken. Right there by Catelyn.
Well, it's interesting to think. I was just kind of thinking about it as you were reading there. How the inn has never actually almost become its own sort of a keep. Because of its central location, you'd have to think that a lot of money would pass through that location. And so that the owners, at some point would, get involved in like the Game of Thrones. And I mean, you look at somebody like Littlefinger, who's able to rise up, like his family. He talks about his dad a little bit, but like essentially, guys that rise up from nothing. Here you have a central inn that clearly looks like it makes a lot of money, because when Catelyn is there, when she sees Tyrion, like the place is full. And so you would just kind of think that it's owning that inn would bring you a lot of gold at some point, but maybe its central location too means you're engaged in a lot of skirmishes and unnecessarily.
Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you have someone here. I think this is later on in the series. His name is Hyle, talking to Maribald. Says that he says, I've never dreamed that keeping an inn could be so dangerous, so deadly dangerous. And the reply is, it's being common born that is dangerous when the great lords play their Game of Thrones. So as you say, there's a Game of Thrones is being played around the inn, and so you get people being the ownership keeps transferring, right? And no one can really ever get ahead. It kind of sucks. But it's just interesting that it's there and that you have this crossroad, and you think about how people travel in Westeros, and these are major roads, big important roads where people will that will use to kind of get to different regions. So, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you too. I just think it must just change hands so often that nobody's ever able to really make any money off of it. Yeah. So okay. Well, this week we are into Tyrion 9. News of Robb Stark's victory at River Run prompts vigorous debate amongst the Lannister officers. After dismissing the officers, Lord Tywin details their precarious position to Tyrion and dispatches him to King's Landing to serve as the acting hand of the king and keep Joffrey from ruining them all. In spite of his father's direct command, Tyrion intends to bring Shae with him. So,
jeez,
mistake. Yeah, the last time we were with Tyrion, Tyrion 8 was where he was assigned with the clansmen, and they fought the battle where they found out that Robb Stark had tricked them. So not too long ago that we have been in a Tyrion chapter, but I do just love the single opening line of this chapter because it really just sets the tone. They have my son, Tywin Lannister said. Yep. Which is almost immediately followed by one of your sons, Tyrion thought.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and dude, it's like, so Tywin says that one line, they have my son, and then he sits there and he doesn't speak. Mm-hmm. He is silent.
Yeah. Everyone's talking, and Tyrion, there's a chapter, or there's a line here by Tyrion a little bit later where he talks about, everyone's talking, and Tyrion talks about how his father isn't, and that he's just observing, and that Tyrion tries to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does, and he's he has taken in the past, I guess, lessons from his father. He knows he's a smart individual. He knows that his father is has a lot to offer, and even though he despises him for some of his treatment early on, there's a lot to be learned from Tywin. He's one of the great lords, and he's a great commander, a great ruler, if you will, when he was Hand of the King. So, yeah, he's looking at his father, trying to emulate a little bit of what he's doing here and listening. He likes to often listen to others before he then gives his own counsel and advice, and that's what Tywin is doing. But I think he's also just sitting here kind of listening to all of this babble going on around him. And really what happens during this time is that Tyrion, I think, says a couple things that elevate him in his father's eyes.
Absolutely.
Now, yeah, you could just say, well, it's simply because Jaime's been captured that he's looking at Tyrion in a different light. But he points out some pretty obvious things that other people are missing, and kind of gets to the core of this with the turmoil and what's happening in King's Landing. They are in a position. They're not in a position where they can bargain and sue for peace and things like that. Which is what they would need to do here because of the capture of Jaime Lannister. And so the fact that Tyrion can see that is, I think, impressive or important to Tywin. But anyways, yeah, we can kind of run through some of what these other lords are talking about as they sit around the table here, and they all voice their opinions, right?
Yeah, you've got well, let me see here. I don't. Well, you do have that line here really quick. Tyrion thought he'd rather wish not be at this inn again.
Yeah. Right, so that reference again to the crossroads, and being back there.
Yeah, how could this happen? Sir Horace Swift moaned. How? Even after whispering wood, you had River Run ringed in iron, surrounded by a great host. What madness made Sir Jaime decide to split his men into 3 separate camps? Surely he knew how vulnerable they would leave them. Better than you chinless craven, Tyrion thought. Jaime might have lost River Run, but it angered him to hear his brothers slandered by the likes of Swift, a shameless lickspittle whose greatest accomplishment was marrying his equally chinless daughter to Sir Kevin and thereby attaching himself to the Lannisters. Yeah, so you start to see a little bit about who the people are that are really kind of the higher ups in this camp here, with Tywin. And it does always seem like the people around him are pretty foolish.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that's really so. Yeah,
maybe it's just by comparison because Tywin is so great, right? Or that it seems like, or it's just maybe they just are like, it seems like even Kevin Lannister just sometimes seems like an idiot.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the same ambition, I don't think, as Tywin, but he is one of the only people that he keeps in the room, and I don't think he keeps Sir Kevin just because he's his brother. Maybe I guess you could say, well, it's close family, it's a close family matter, and he's keeping a closer counsel on what he wants to do. But when he dismisses everybody, it's like he pays no mind to anything that they said. I mean, Sir Kevin actually kind of rebukes Sir Harry's because he knows that is the only way you could have surrounded River Run, is that he said if you knew the lay of the land, if you understood what the Tullys do at River Run when they see a threat, they've created a moat, this huge moat. They've got these rivers coming in here, so you have to split your army. So he shows he's competent there, but he's completely different. You're right in regards to just I don't know, personality, I guess, with when you compare him to Tywin. So, but because he definitely scolds Sir Harry's.
Yeah,
as he should, because Jaime knows what he's doing.
And I mean, even Kevin here says he would have done the same thing as Jaime. He said, I would have done the same thing. His uncle responded, a great more deal calmly than Tyrion might have. You have never seen River Run, Sir Harry's, or you would know that Jaime had little choice in the battle. The castle is situated at the end of the point of land where the Tumblestone flows into the Red Fork of the Trident. The rivers form two sides of a triangle, and when danger threatens, the Tullys open their gates upstream to create a wide moat on the third side, turning River Run into an island. The walls rise sheer from the water, and from their towers, the defenders have a commanding view of the opposite shores for many leagues around. To cut off all the approaches, a besieger must need place one camp north of the Tumblestone, one south of the Red Fork, and the third between the rivers west of the moat. There is no other way. And remember, if you remember a couple chapters ago, they say at least we still have River Run. Right? We have River Run is what like the Rob and them were saying. Yeah, because River Run is it's almost impossible to get into.
Yeah. Well, and they have stock there to kind of they can withstand this encampment or what have you. I mean they could stay there. I think it says at one point like over a year that they have plenty of stores to kind of outlast whatever army would be outside their gates. Yeah. Now, something that's kind of cool, and I think it's a chapter or two away, but Hoster Tully actually says that they put him out where up on a high place. I forget where it's at, either outside of on his balcony, or maybe he went down to the guard post. But he gets to watch that battle, and it gave him kind of great joy to see that the Lannisters were getting routed by his grandson. Yeah, that was kind of cool. But man, it's the Mountain who actually kind of talks about their outriders. Did they see nothing? Right. Were they blind? Like why didn't they see this? They kind of explain it as in Mark Piper this is what Brendan said they should do. Brendan Blackfish said that Piper had been raiding. They knew that there was a raiding party, and it was kind of cutting off. It was hitting some of their supply lines, and so they thought that this small little attack that took place by the Starks was Mark Piper again and his men, and they were luring Jaime Lannister out to capture him. That's exactly what they did. So, but they kind of explain that the Outriders were vanishing, and they thought that was Mark Piper's work, that they hadn't seen them coming back. And it's sort of like, well, if they're vanishing, something,
right, something's
up. I mean, they were vanishing before the Stark host got there, I guess is what they're trying to say. So when other vanishings continued to happen, they didn't really think much of it. But I don't know. It's something Tywin does at the end of this chapter is basically say that we're gonna. It's not just one outrider. We're gonna have four in groups together. So it's like if one outrider vanishes, and they saw the entire host, all of that information doesn't get back to camp. If you had four and they take three, but one was able, the three can fight, so the other one can run back to the camp and kind of let people know like what we saw, then that's more important. It's kind of what the Mountain tries to say here, right? And kind of tries to reiterate. So because that they would have seen this host coming and they could have prepared for it, but when your outrider vanishes like that, you have no clue. You can assume that he vanished just because he came across Mark Piper, but you have no real proof of that. So you're assuming something, and that's tough. When you start losing outriders, that's a problem. You need to go investigate it. And maybe they did originally, and they just determined that it was Piper's men. But I mean, as time goes on, you can't just do one investigation. You got to keep looking. You got to keep checking in on it, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Do you like what the Mountain's response is here?
Yeah.
Cut out the eyes and give him to the next one. So you tell him that 4 eyes might be better than 2, and if not, the man after him will have 6.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Mountain just gruesome dude.
Yeah,
I mean, scaring the daylights out of him. Yeah, but he's smart. We always think of him as being this big, brawny, just ruthless dude, but he's also very cunning.
And then right after it says, Lord Tywin Lannister turned his face to study Sir Gregor, saw a glimmer of gold as the light shone his father's pupils, but he could not have said whether the look was one of approval or disgust.
Mm-hmm. It's probably both.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both.
Right? It's probably both. It's sort of he sees the monster, but he also sees, yeah, that's a man who knows what he's doing. That's somebody I can trust on his own. And it sucks because it's kind of like Jaime does kind of lose in that regard. He doesn't keep a good watch. He is outsmarted. He is outmaneuvered completely. And that's what I think is so cool for people who love, the Starks. I mean, your brother is not happy about this move, but people who are Stark loyalists are, pumped that Robb is able to do this and outwit the Kingslayer.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great maneuver. It was a great idea.
Yeah.
And then, you hear it says, you said they came at night. As you said, the Blackfish led the van, cutting down our sentries and clearing away the palisades. Just because the Blackfish is boss. Just get our daily who's a boss and who's no slouch in there. Definitely what he is there. So there's a little bit more back and forth here, and some more people talking. You have Lord Brax here. Sorry, my lord, the messenger said Lord Brax was clad in plate and mail when his raft was overturned. He was very gallant. He was a fool, Lord Tyrion thought, swirling his cup and staring down into the winey depths, crossing a river at night on a crude raft wearing armor with an enemy waiting at the other side. If that was gallantry, he would take cowardice over every time.
Yeah, I mean, that's his son. That's his son who's asking, I guess, right, about his father. And that sucks. But, and really, I don't know. To his defense, when you go back and you look at, like, they're trying to preserve some of their army. So when you're overrun like that, you've got to try to retreat and get your force reestablished. So maybe that's sort of what he was doing, but he's an idiot for making his own craft, and he did just float right into the enemy's hands. So anyways, they're in a really vulnerable spot there. But yeah, Tyrion's just inner thoughts this whole chapter. You're a fool. You're a chinless craven. That's sort of what he thinks about these individuals who are sitting around his father's table. And God save us, Lord Lefford swore. Quote, Great John Umber fired the siege towers we were building. Lord Blackwood found Sir Edmure Tully in chains among the other captives and made off with them all. Our south camp was under the command of Sir Prestard. He retreated in good order when he saw that the other camps were lost. This is where the Tyrashi sellswords kind of betray them too. That's another big piece, right? Jaime was trusting in them, and he's been warned before that to not use sellswords essentially, because they'll sell their sword to the highest individual. If they see that the war is turning or the fight is turning against them, they're going to kind of save their own skin, right? Got to live another day, and they really don't owe the Lannisters anything. I mean that they're just going to ride off. And
it's interesting because we didn't see it in season 8, but a lot of people believe that the Golden Company may actually betray Cersei down the line, and so it's like, here's another scenario where something similar is happening.
Right. And what's weird is that you have some companies who are known to keep their contract and who don't turn tail and run. So, but this Tyrashi sellsword definitely does, and that's really upsetting to Sir Kevin. But yeah, I mean that's a lot of foreshadowing for what's going to happen later on with Dany trusting them. I mean, do you trust them? Does young Griff trust them? I mean, it's the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So now they're trying to come up with a plan here. What do you do?
Right.
Because Jaime's host is essentially gone. It's destroyed. There's remnants of it maybe running around trying to evade capture or whatever from the Star Coast, but they're looking for maybe peace, possibly. Are they trying to now they're thinking about peace because they have Jaime Lannister, and they seem to be pinned in a little bit.
Yeah, they got to come up with something. They got to come up with some kind of a plan here.
I mean, even though Sir Adam says, two battles don't make a war, but it's sort of like, I don't know. I mean, you're completely in these two battles. Yes, it's Tywin has a bit of a win here, but Lord Bolton is just, he's cunning. He's not going to risk his whole force, and so he does what he was supposed to do. I mean, he does sort of like keep Tywin interested in battle and keep him thinking that they're going to have a big fight there, and he retreats and pulls his force back and saves a lot. So there's still a force just north of where Tywin's at, and now you have River Run completely, a large host there, would definitely outnumbers them. Actually, they say at the end of this that the combination of River Run and the North, I mean, that they outnumber the Lannisters, right? That they're concerned because of that, just in numbers.
Yeah. And then right here is kind of Tyrion's kind of famous, one of his famous kind of scenes here. I'm sure we are all great. Sir Adam Marbrand said, "I'm sure we are all grateful to you for pointing out the obvious, Sir Horace. The question is, what shall we do about it? What can we do? Jaime's host is all slaughtered or taken or put to flight, and the Starks and the Tullys sit squarely across our line of supplies. We are cut off from the west. They can march on Casterly Rock if they so choose. And what's to stop them, my lords? We are beaten. We must sue for peace." Peace. Tyrion swirled his wine thoughtfully, took a deep draught, and hurled his empty cup to the floor, where it shattered into 1,000 pieces. "There's your peace. My sweet nephew broke it for good when he decided to ornament the Red Keep with Lord Eddard's head. You'll have an easier time drinking wine from that cup than you will convincing Robb Stark to make peace now. He's winning, or hadn't you noticed?" Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So, now, you look at it and, man, just like a chapter or two ago, they would have been fine. Not anymore.
No, yeah, Joffrey has completely jacked that up and screwed that up.
Which I think is a big reason why Tywin sends Tyrion.
Yeah, it's the main reason. Yeah, absolutely. He's his son, and he's kind of showing here in this conversation that he understands. He can cut to the core of why their situation is so much worse than it should be. It shouldn't be this worse. I mean, even though you lose one battle, and all of a sudden now you've lost the war. Well, it's because you have no bargaining chips. You've lost other pieces due to incompetence down in King's Landing. So there you go. And it's like something that Sir Adam actually mentions here, that they talk about the idea of ransoming, trying to use the Stark girls, and he basically says like they'd be foolish to accept the lives of two girls for a great battle commander.
Well,
I think they would.
I mean, they don't know that, but that's exactly what Catelyn Stark would do.
That's what she would do. And I wonder, though, because there's a Jon chapter coming up here soon where he wonders what Robb would do about certain things. I think we think Robb would take them back and would maybe make the trade. But I'm not so sure, actually. Because he basically, we'll get to that next in a couple of chapters about what he thinks needs to be done, and his whole purpose now is to basically kill Joffrey. Like he's done with the Lannisters. So, but yeah, you're right. So they think it's something that they wouldn't go for. Catelyn definitely would, and that's all the problem, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but anyways, this goes on for a little bit, and then Lord Tywin rose to his feet. "They have my son," he said once more, in a voice that cut through the babble like a sword through a suet.
Mm-hmm.
"Leave me, all of you." Yeah.
Ever the soul of obedience, Tyrion rose to depart with the rest, but his father gave him a look. "Not you, Tyrion. Remain, and you as well. Kevin, the rest of you out." Tyrion eased himself back onto the bench, startled and speechless. Sir Kevin crossed the room to the wine cast. "Uncle," Tyrion called, "if you would be so kind." Tyrion. Here, his father offered him his cup, his wine, which was untouched. Now
That's shocking.
Yeah. So Tyrion was he's kind of taken aback there. So Tyrion drinks. Lord Tywin seated himself. You have the right about Stark. Alive, he might have been used, Lord Eddard, to forge a peace with Winterfell and Riverrun, a peace that would have given us time to deal with Robert's brothers. See, that's how far ahead Tywin Lannister is. He doesn't I think everyone there is like, we got to figure out a way to get Jaime back. Whereas Tywin is already one step ahead and he's thinking, we've got another issue we've got to worry about too. How does this all fit together? And that's just the brilliance of Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, it is. He's well informed, and it's weird that none of these other members of his air quote council are thinking about this kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe they don't know that information. It's information that Robb knows later on. He figures it out in his chapter. So yeah, he's way ahead, and he's realizing that the problem, that there is an issue in King's Landing that is causing him more grief here in the field, because he has no other. It's limiting his options, and that's, I think, what is ticking him off. He says here, you have the right about it. He says, Joff's only a boy. Tyrion pointed out, at his age, I committed a few follies of my own. His father gave him a sharp look. I suppose we ought to be grateful he has not yet married a whore. Tyrion sips his wine, wondering how Lord Tywin would, look if he flung that cup in his face. Could you imagine? I think Tywin would just stand there. I don't think he would do anything. I think he would just stand there and look at him like, Are you serious? Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's something about,
and I think he would just say something like, if you're going to behave like a child, something like that is like what he would say to him.
Yeah, well, he definitely would make the offer. I mean, he would.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, like, obviously it doesn't happen, but
I know, but it's everything that you, like, the way you react. Even when he puts you in that position, the way you manage and control yourself is a test, I think. By
absolutely, Tywin. He goes on, our position is worse than you know. His father went on, I would have, it would seem we have a new king. The flainter, Sir Kevin looks, pollexed anew. What have they done to Joffrey? The faintest flicker of distaste played across Lord Tywin's thin lips. Nothing yet. My grandson still sits the Iron Throne, but the eunuch has heard whispers from the south. Renly Baratheon wed Marjorie Tyrell at Highgarden this fortnight, and now he has claimed the crown. The bride's father and brothers have bent the knee and sworn their swords. So this is where it comes. This is where we start to get these other players here. House Tyrell, Storm of Sword, or Clash of Kings, get ready, because it is a huge. They're a huge player. They changed the game, really, and Renly there. So,
it's a big deal. I mean, it's just south of the Westerlands, right? You've got the Tyrells now are backing completely another king. They're not even pretending to be loyal to King Joffrey, and that's a bordering region that's a big deal, and Tywin's host is not back there and able to do anything, really. They can't even challenge that host, and that's kind of comes into play here with their decision making. One thing that's interesting as well is King Joffrey. Tyrion asked, how's he taking the news? Well, they're not going to tell him. Why would you tell King Joffrey about this? I mean, he might actually raise an army and try to go out there and fight him, because he's an idiot. He doesn't understand numbers or strategy. I don't think he would know how much of how big the host is, or would send out riders or scouts. I mean, he's not going to be very well informed, and so Cersei has decided not to tell him, because they don't know whether they can trust Joffrey to do the right thing. And this is why I keep saying he's supposed to have, like, a regent, right? He's, air quote, supposed to. But his regent, being his mother, isn't doing the greatest of jobs. Now she's just keeping stuff from him, which is fine. That's actually a good move. But they just don't have a real good grip on him, and he's not taking any of their counsel. He's not listening to anybody. So, and it's kind of crazy to think that Tywin is going to send Tyrion there. Not that he's going to listen to Tyrion, but that it doesn't really matter if he takes anybody else. He's just literally there to stop him from doing something stupid. And when he comes up with stupid ideas or he wants to do something rash, Tyrion's there just to say no, or to find ways to cleverly move him in a different direction.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, right here it's it's Cersei. How's the king taken the news? Cersei has not seemed fit to tell me yet. She fears he might insist on marching Renly himself. With what army? Says he thinks of leading the city watch. Like it's just how stupid he is.
Yeah, it's dumb. I mean, and they actually go over several of the different things that he has done that are pretty stupid, as in the promotion that he gives to Slint.
Slint, yeah.
Yeah, he's the son of a butcher, and he's just this up jump guy for some reason now. All of a sudden, just because I don't know if that's Cersei's doing maybe, or because there was some that goes back to Eddard being captured and Littlefinger, which he mentions as well. He just says the king is surrounded by a bunch of incompetent idiots. He does not know. They all have different agendas, and I don't know who can be trusted. There's just no real
right. And this is the most curious thing, right? When he's talking about all the things they're facing, he says, I have felt from the beginning that Stannis was the greater danger than all the others combined, yet he does nothing. While Varys hears his whispers, Stannis is building ships, Stannis is hiring sellswords, Stannis is bringing a shadowbinder from Ahai. What does that mean, if any of it true? And that's, again, as we talk about, is when we get to Clash of Kings, man, the game changes, right? Because I mean, it is. Also, I mean, this is where I give Tywin Lannister some props, because he knows that obviously, the one true king in Westeros and the most epic battle commander of all time, Stannis Baratheon. Okay, I can't wait till we get to Stannis chapters that have Stannis in it. I just can't wait.
Yep, that's your guy.
Man, I know
that's your guy.
So they tell Sir Kevin to bring the map. Jaime's left us in a bad way. Roose Bolton and the remnants of the host are north of us. Our enemies hold the Twins and Moat Cailin. Robb Stark sits to the west, so we cannot retreat to Lannisport and the Rock unless we choose to give battle. Jaime is taken, and his army, for all purposes, has ceased to exist. Thoros of Myr and Beric Dondarrion continue to plague us for our foraging parties. To our east, we have the Arryns. Stannis Baratheon sits on Dragonstone, and in the south, Highgarden and Storm's End are calling the banners. And then Tyrion with his joke here: "Take heart, father. At least Rhaegar Targaryen is still dead." It's like, I mean, it's bad. And the crazy thing is, think about think about just right now. It's like, the Lannisters should almost cease to exist at this point. But somehow it all ends up working out almost, in their favor. When you just look at how bad it is. I mean, Balon Greyjoy has yet to declare that he's going to rebel as well. I mean, that's really the big thing, because that's what slows Robb down. And then, of course, obviously, the Red Wedding. But, I mean, that really slows him down. But, so
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a wonder that they get out of this and that they make it, but it's just Tywin being a boss again. Call him for what he is. So he doesn't have any intention of remaining in this particular spot. They are kind of caught between almost like three armies right now, and he's not too worried about Roose Bolton, because, as we said earlier, he's wary. He's someone who is he's not like big on committing or doing something super rash. I mean, he's more about preservation versus going in here and trying to wipe out Tywin. I just thought he wouldn't take him on. He doesn't have the troops, number
Right.
one, actually, to do that on his own. But he decides that they need to kind of make for Harrenhal, so they decide to make there. And he tells Kevin that he wants Sir Adam and his Outriders to screen their movements, essentially, so that way people they can get there undetected, unhindered, if you will. So he has a bunch of different men. He says give him as many men as he needs, and then I will have no vanishings, right? So basically, I want to know what's happening. I want to know what's going on. We've been outmaneuvered once, so you're not going to make that same mistake again. You should be double the guard, right? Triple it, whatever. Send out your Outriders, your scouts. Make sure that you've got a larger group out there in case one of them is taken. The others can kind of report the location, and we can understand where the enemy is at, if you will.
So, yeah, none of this really looks, really looks good for them. So, I mean, the chapter really, after they kind of decide, hey, let's go to, let's go out. It really almost ends up just with Tywin kind of telling Tyrion, okay, I'm sending you to King's Landing.
Yeah. I mean, he's shocked at first, right? Tyrion's shocked that he gets the cup from his father, that he gets the wine cup, and then he's shocked later on when he realizes that when asked why he's going to send him there, I think doesn't Tyrion say something like, or I'm sorry, Tywin says, because you're my son. And Tyrion's like, you damn fool. Like, you've given up on the fact that he's given up Jaime for dead. He doesn't believe he's going to be able to get him back. And I don't know that that's the case. I think it's just that he is moving forward and he's doing what he has to do to preserve and put them in the best possible position.
I think he realizes it's tough because we don't really know what Tywin thinks of Tyrion. I think that Tywin. So part of me always thinks that Tywin knows just how smart Tyrion is, and so I mean he sends him to King's Landing, and you and I have talked about this before. Is when he sends him to King's Landing, he says don't take that whore with you. Is it like a test for Tyrion? And Tyrion, botches it by actually doing it. Like, what would have happened if Tyrion hadn't done it? And I don't mean obviously the whole Joffrey getting poisoned thing. I mean simply like what Tywin's kind of thoughts on it would have been.
Yeah, because well before any of that stuff happens with Joffrey, Joffrey picks up on how his grandfather and how his mother interact with Tyrion. So he realizes that that's somebody that we can pick on, and so he picks on him. And I think that's really Cersei's fault, and that is Tywin's fault. They're okay with that, and they do it themselves, so whatever. They continue to pick on him, essentially, because he does fail a test. He does disobey his father, and he does bring his air quote, his whore with him to King's Landing. And so he was told not to do that. I mean, Tywin is essentially telling him, I know that you have one, and I keep tabs on you. It really showed me that he keeps tabs on him, and he understands what's going on, and he knows everything. Tywin's very well informed, and it's a test that Tyrion fails. He does everything else right. I think he would have been looked on in a much better way or light when Tywin returns, versus you remember when he's injured later on, he just sort of has really no place. No one thanks him. No one whatever. And then there's a lesson in and of that, right? Do you need thanks and all that kind of stuff? But I think his treatment would have been a little bit different. But I don't know. Maybe not, because maybe Tywin doesn't know right away that he's taking the whore with him. But I kind of think he does. Because, he knew she was at this camp, and now she's not at the camp. You know what I'm saying? She's gone. She's not with the Lannister host anymore.
And do you think...
Why wouldn't she have stayed and moved on with somebody else?
Tywin... I mean... Part of me is like, Tywin sends Tyrion there because he realizes I need Tyrion to go at least somewhat control Joffrey, right? And so I can focus on getting Jaime back, and hopefully, maybe he can deal with Stannis. Like, do you think he because it's never really said, right? We don't really know like what Tywin thinks, but Tyrion does go defeat Stannis at the Battle of the Blackwater with a genius plan, and
yeah, well, right. I mean, that's why I brought up earlier. Like he talks about like dismissing Barristan Selmy, right? Stupid move, really dumb. His name still carries a bunch of honor. It's just good to have. He's good to have.
Well, he's
around.
also still one of the. He's also still one of the
the
best knights. So I mean, there's that. Yeah,
exactly. And people, yeah, and I think some people think, well, he's getting old, so maybe he's not as good as whoever. I think he could have taken Jaime Lannister in his prime, in his old age.
Well, he took those two knights without a sword. So I mean,
yeah. So anyways, it's just like that's a blunder by Joffrey and by Cersei as well. She allows that to take place. So there's that. What were some of the other blunders that he did? He has several, right? I mean, so the whole idea is he's going to send Tyrion there to put an end to that. Like Cersei's done being. I mean, he's going to rule as Hand of the King in his father's place, and it's shocking to Tyrion, but it's necessary, and he sees it's about family, and it's about putting them in a better position. He knows also that Tyrion can't go in there and scold Cersei and kind of turn her into or change how she is running things. You know, like, here's a message from Father. You need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And she's not going to listen to that. She'll listen to Father if Father tells her that, but she's not going to listen to Tyrion. So instead, no, you're just going to go, you're going to be Hand of the King then. That's it. Here's the letter. Take this. It's got my seal, my mark, all that good stuff. And that's a direct sort of like, you know, order. I mean, she would have faced consequences, I think, from Tywin if he would have just sent, you know, Tyrion back with a message to Cersei and she didn't follow through on the advice given. He still would have, there would have been consequences. But now it's like, I mean, he's coming back and he is the Hand of the King. So you got to respect that. And that's not something that I think it shocks her too. Mm-hmm. He also probably knows there needs to be a shock factor in sending him in there because of how he has been treated. I need to do something that's going to make Cersei realize that, you know, you've messed up. You put us in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, so go Tyrion, right?
And then Tyrion ends up taking Shay to court, and you know, kind of big blunder move. You know, it's like literally, it's like one last thing he said at the door: "You will not take the whore to court." And then, literally one paragraph later, I have a mind to take you to King's Landing, sweetly. It's like, Tyrion, come on, man!
Oh man, it's crazy. It's crazy. That's why we love him so much. You know, I mean, like it's also a whole nother level of excitement because he's trying to keep her away from everybody else and hiding her and all this stuff, you know, and she doesn't want to be hidden, and it's just crazy. So,
okay, all right. Well, hey guys, that was the chapter. Do we have we do have actually a large raven here from Lady Sarah. She hasn't sent us one in a while, is what she says here. So this one's kind of long, and it's well detailed. She says, "Dear sirs, it has been too long since I've flown in a raven. The podcast has helped me get me through this summer. Let me tell you, I am currently in the midst of a separation." Oh wow, that is so sorry. That is so sorry to hear. I am so sorry for that. Both very needed and very painful. Wrapping up ideas, theories, and thoughts have been a bit cumbersome, and the research does take some time to do properly, as you two know all too well. So after almost breaking my brain in A Song of Ice and Fire lore and history, here is my raven tied up in the neatest bow I could tie. She says subjects include Summerhall, lineage, Lord Commanders of the Night's Watch, Mance Rayder, Brendan Rivers, Rhaegar Targaryen, Rubies, Blue Rose, and Bran. Woo! So are you strapped in, Sir Ezra?
I honestly just I'm like pulling up topics right now, getting ready.
Okay. So she has like a timeline here too. So she says Night's Watch commanders before Bloodraven until Jon Snow. Lord Commander before Brendan Rivers was Jack Musgood, 226 AC. Bloodraven sent to the Wall at 233 AC. He's elected Lord Commander 239, where he is Lord Commander for 13 years, and he disappears at 252. There are no known Lord Commanders until Korgel. Korgel is the Night's Watch commander in 288, so that's about 30 years. Lord Commander after him is Jeor Mormont in 288, so we just know that he takes over. I guess we don't actually know. We don't know when Korgel takes over, but just he's sometime after Bloodraven until 288. Excuse me, and then Jon Snow takes over as 300. So then she shifts to another kind of timeline here. Mance Rayder joined the Night's Watch as a boy, kind of question mark. We don't necessarily know. Mance comes to Winterfell with Korgel to visit Lord Eddard Stark and his sons Robb and Jon. Mance then abandons the Night's Watch. There's no years really lifted for Mance's history. Summerhall takes place 259 AC. So here we go. The fire and birth of Rhaegar happened on the same day. Parallels to Dany's pyre with Drogo, the eggs, and the Magi are plain as day. Brendan Rivers had disappeared from his Night's Watch for 7 years. At this point, who knows what powers or influential whispers he may have already been putting into place at this point. A king, multiple princes, and a Lord Commander of the Knights Guard were amongst those to die in said tragedy. Yet somehow Rhaella was able to give birth to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen amid the chaos and devastation. Up until his death, air quote, Rhaegar would visit the ruins in varying states of melancholy and comfort. Was there a force there whispering words of prophecy and future events to him? Bloodraven. Could Bloodraven have also guided Mance Rayder beyond the wall and possibly before? Mance is rumored to either be Arthur Dayne or Rhaegar himself. Mance's main objective is to untie the wild folk and head south for safety, not war. Was this an idea or need of his own to do so? This, or was there an outside influence going on to unite all of them? Besides Sir Duncan the Tall, nobody's backstory is as vague or as generic as Mance's. Mance always equaled Sir Arthur Dayne to me. Rhaegar always felt too eager to end up being Mance's true identity. Going through Summerhall, Duncan Egg, and deep Bloodraven rabbit holes, it is all clear that Rhaegar Targaryen and Brendan Rivers had a symbiotic relationship from afar and through supernatural means. Let's go. Okay, that's what I'm saying. The rubies that adorned Rhaegar's armory at the Trident are the reddest flag I've ever seen. Red silk from Ahai sewn into his black cloak, red on black. Melisandre's glamour of Mance to Rattleshirt would not work without the rubies. The constant need to visit Winterfell. He is presently at Winterfell helping rescue Arya while lurking around the crypts nonstop. And according to Ramsay Bolton, he is now in a cage with the sewn skins of his wives to keep him warm. That Ramsay sure is inventive, and I don't believe this capture of Mance is true. I agree. What if Mance sent the letter to Jon under the guise of Ramsay in hopes Jon would rally his troops to Winterfell? This would put the Northerners and Free Folk south away from the White Walkers / others and ready to fight in a similar fashion to the show. Rhaegar Targaryen understood that there was a long game to play, not one including bloodlines, dragon eggs, and marriages, but one including saving Westeros from an inevitable threat. Rhaegar was heading north in every sense. Blue roses. From a tale of wildling singer making off with Stark daughter to a young dragon prince, crowning blue roses on the head of another Stark's daughter and making off with her. Could Rhaegar have seen that the Seven Kingdoms rule was meant to be in the hands of a young Stark, not a Targaryen with generations of lineage behind him? Could he have divulged this to Lyanna, telling her one day her nephew would be king and that they must do all they can to make this possible no matter the price? He must have had a deep knowledge of the Stark family history and the North. For the blue roses to hold up such significance would not be lost on Rhaegar. The young prince Oh, sorry, I just lost my. The young prince could not do any of this without support and guidance. We would have an idea of the support he received, but not so much of on the guidance. Could the three-eyed crow / Brennan Rivers / Bloodraven be the guide? His whispers have traveled from the Mad King, burn them all, to Lord Jeor Mormont in the form of his bird, king, and corn, and most importantly to Bran, you will fly. Rhaegar and Bloodraven have been working to protect the future reign of Bran Stark, a fellowship, if you will. The line of the Targaryens is insignificant. That's why so many surprise ones pop up. That's why there was never a sure bet with a queen or king ascending the long line. That is why Aegon the Conqueror gave zero fucks about his sister wives getting knocked up when they did. One sister got pregnant with a singer's baby / Aenys, and the other got pregnant with black magic Maekor. He knew he needed to unite the kingdoms for a reason beyond passing crowns from one son to another, the path the coming Targaryens sadly followed for generations. I believe this unrest and power-mongering caused to evil powers to stir and awaken. Daenerys, Daenys the Dreamer, dreamt of the old doom of Valyria, and the Targaryens set sail to Westeros soon thereafter. The same doom has been encircling Westeros for 300 years, inevitable and close now. The only hope to save it includes a young Stark with eventually no power to procreate, die, or invoke any biases or nepotism into his rule. The opposition has been decaying the Seven Kingdoms for far too long, just as it did in old Valyria with its unbalanced hierarchy, slavery, etc. The doom is the apathy of the people, the darkness of heart, and the corruption of innocence. Creatures manifest and appear with these core values, both in supernatural and human form. Rhaegar, dead or alive, understood this inherently. From his birth to adulthood, where he was a witness to the despicable ways of entitlement, special favors, and grudge-induced sights those in power thrive on. And all one has to do is look back at the Targaryens that gotten lost. Rhaegar made it clear no more. Change is coming in a radical new shape. He even mentioned to Jaime he will fill him in the next time they saw each other, but he never did, and Jaime went on to push Bran out of a window to protect the safety of his own corrupted line of children. A line of bastard children passed off as the kings, just like so many that had been before them. A push, a whisper, a dream is all one needs to see outside of the reality that they have created for themselves. Rhaegar Targaryen is a shining example of that. He lost love, children, and his life to save the Seven Kingdoms, not only the eventual destruction of the White Walkers, but also the vile politics humanity has created for itself. It seems through certain Targaryens throughout history have been custodians for this type of change and elevated thinking. Perhaps all it comes down to is the toss of a coin that it places you on one side of sanity and level-headedness, or insanity and madness, and all that can go 50-50. Wow.
Something interesting. I've thought about this. Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives, right? His wives. They really, does he have any offspring? Aegon the Conqueror? Are any of those, Aenys and
right?
And,
are they
Maekor,
actually his?
Are they actually his? Yeah, that's people have. I've read that in Reddit and other places too. People have thought the same thing, that perhaps they weren't, and they're still Targaryens, right? They're born from Targaryen women, and so this line is there, but it's already kind of starting off on a bad seed, whatever. And you've got Jaime Lannister, so that connection to Jaime and his bastard children and stuff is interesting. Thought that was cool. Back to the beginning of this, though, the whole bit about Rhaegar possibly being Mance Rayder, right? Or Sir Arthur Dayne. Well, both those were kind of tossed up there as possibilities. The glamour, the rubies. What is there something? Basically, this is a tie back to Summerhall. And did Bloodraven see something, know of something, and impacted Rhaegar during those times. We haven't done it yet. We're about to record our Harrenhal Part 3, and that comes up again. There's actually a belief, there's some theory out there that Summerhall is a place that perhaps Lyanna and Rhaegar stopped at in that whole theory. So, yeah, I think Bloodraven could have been influencing and could have been whispering to him, and that could have been a part of the sudden change in him, and maybe he did foresee a need to kind of end this Targaryen, line and start a new line, or look for a new individual who would rise and be
right,
not the savior, but would essentially free the realm from the darkness that's coming.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what it could be that breaks the wheel, right? It's really interesting. It's a really interesting thing because it's a prophecy that Lady Sarah is breaking down here, but it's not just, oh, we got to find a way to defeat the White Walkers. It's no, we got to find a way to stop, we defeat the White Walkers because, pulling from the show, it's almost like, Cersei's not even worried about them. Whether or not she thinks they're real or not, and that it's just interesting because it's like that's not even the real darkness, right? It's like it's our corruption, it's our whatever. It's almost like as a society we need to become more like enlightened, right? Like you think back in our own human history, like the Enlightenment, and all these new kind of ideas and stuff like that, and it's just interesting. Yeah. It's a really, really, really interesting, idea here. And she makes a lot of points here. It's kind of it's just wow. It's all super interesting.
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways too, because we've talked about Mance Rayder being Rhaegar, and she talks about the idea that there would be a desire for why is Mance, why does he want to visit Winterfell? If he were Rhaegar, there'd be significance there. There'd be a reason why in his old age he would want to go visit and see Eddard Stark's children, right? There'd be a reason he'd want to go check in there and see what was happening, and why he would take special note of Jon. So that was cool. That's an interesting, and if he's Arthur Dayne, same thing actually. There's a reason why
right.
Mance wants to come down to Winterfell and take a look. It's also the closest place. You could argue it's if you're part of the Night's Watch, or even if you're a wildling king beyond the wall at that time, it's a place where you can go and check out and see and understand the culture and stuff. What's weird though is about Mance Rayder is that when he does come down and kind of pretend to be a bard and is there in Winterfell, it's almost like he already knows. If he's been raised south of the wall, he kind of understands the layout, the culture. He gets what it's like to be a kneeler, if you will. And so why does he come down? Why does he come down to see,
Yeah.
Why visit Winterfell?
Exactly. Yeah. Just to see if he could. Yeah. I love the idea of Mance, being Rhaegar or Arthur Dayne. To me, I still feel like there's a lot more validity to it with him being Rhaegar than Arthur Dayne. That's I don't know. I just like the idea of Rhaegar being alive, and the show did show us, Arthur Dayne being killed. Of course, the language used is, like save for Howland Reed, and maybe they have a discussion, and there's definitely stuff that happens in the books, obviously, like is Septim Lemore, is she Ashara Dayne, all that kind of stuff. But I've always been a big fan of the Mance Rayder is Rhaegar theory. Yeah.
That would be, I don't know. It's still all kind of twisted, and I think we're going to, obviously, the series not over. We need more clues and things, but there's enough clues that people have started to kind of make references there. The one that we went over, it's been, months ago, but we found just a crap ton of quotes when Corrin Halfhand is taking Jon, and that they're scouting, right? And the dawn, right. The morning,
Well, okay, hear me out on this, right? So let's say, for example, this is kind of a hypothetical. Let's say that, I mean, there's only so much text left, right? That Gur can write, right? I mean, there's 2 books, right?
Yeah.
So, again, this is what we talked about kind of before with, now that we've seen some stuff in the show, how do we get there in the books? So this could be something that would be cool, right? In the show, Mance Rayder dies. Jon saves him, right? He shoots him, so he's still alive. So you have to figure out something to do with him. I don't believe Mance Rayder will survive the series, but Mance Rayder, he talked about hanging out down in the crypts and stuff like that. So if Ramsay Bolton does have him, and somehow we still have to get to Jon and Sansa, teaming up to take back Winterfell, right? Because the battle. That seems like it does definitely is going to happen. Well, what if Jon goes there, defeats Ramsay Bolton, and then it's almost kind of like with Ygritte, right, where he's kind of walking around afterwards and then finds her. Well, what if the same thing happens, but he finds Mance Rayder, and Mance Rayder's injured, and he's down in the crypts, next to Lyanna's tomb, and he doesn't necessarily say much, but he just, you know what I mean? But he just kind of dies there, and you know what I mean,
Oh, sir.
So it just alludes to bigger things, I just think that'd be super cool, and that would be a way to that'd be a way to not necessarily give it away, because we're just in this really odd position where the show is the show's over, and we may or we may not know the story, and so that would be a way to do it that's different, that still doesn't necessarily give it away, because it could still be something totally different. But I just think it'd be super cool. I think because you still have all these characters you have to do stuff with. You have to that there's these extra characters you can't just say forget and let's just make it the same as the show. So you've got to kind of weave them in, and things are going to be different. The outcome can be the same, but
yeah, no, that was good. I mean, that's some of the stuff that we a couple months ago were talking about, that our guide, our map that we're kind of working on, that you and I are developing ideas.
Right. You know what I mean? It's it's 2 + 2 = 4, but 5 - 1 also equals 4. So, it's how you get there is the same. So
yeah. Right. And that's what we're trying to kind of pencil together. And if you're thinking about a way to make it not a big deal, because the crazy thing about Mance Rayder is he's mentioned right out the gate. He was a thought that George had immediately when he was writing the series.
First chapter.
Yeah. So people forget that.
He's actually mentioned 5 times in the first 3 or 4 chapters.
Yes. So I think when people wonder, what the heck are we talking about Mance Rayder? Didn't come up to, well, because he's been mentioned quite often, and he's a threat at first. We think he's a threat, but really the threat is what he's running from. And then who is he? Then you start to as we learn here in this Raven from Lady Sarah, that there's not much detail on him, not much background. We don't really get it. Did he just? Is it literally just as simple as he was a part of the Night's Watch and decided to, hey, screw this. I fell in love with the wildling, and I'm going north of the wall, or is there more to it? And we can't really believe the story that he was brought there as a boy. I mean, maybe he was. Maybe he was brought there as a boy. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he came there as a man. No one really talks much about him, so he's a huge mystery. And so, if he ended up by Lyanna's tomb and he was almost holding it or leaning up against it or whatever, that would be absolutely crazy. You wouldn't have to say anything else.
I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a super cool way of doing it. And then it doesn't necessarily.
It's not in your face, but.
It's not in your face. It's a subtle way to do it, because you still have more to tell later. Because whether it's Bran or Sam or something, or Howland Reed, something like that. I think it's gonna be a cool way to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and thanks to Lady Sarah, because this is cool. And I was looking back.
That's amazing.
That timeline, trying to figure out when Summerhall's in 259, and then. Looking at the dispute,
and I'm with her. I've said before, and I definitely think there's some validity to the idea, that Bloodraven somehow communicated with Rhaegar, it's possible too that Bloodraven knew that at some point Jaime Lannister and maybe even Rhaegar knew at some point Jaime Lannister is going to push Bran Stark out the window.
Yeah, I mean when you start talking about the whisperings, it's like how much was he talking to Rhaegar, if any? Because right now it doesn't seem like he's talking to people through dreams and stuff, So there's the whisperings, there's the nudges in these different directions, but there's never like real explicit kind of instructions. Do this, do that, do this. It's just give somebody a vision, give them a dream, and then set them on this path. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was more detailed back then, but I definitely think something was happening between those two, and plus being blood related and both being sensitive to green sight or green dreams or dragon dreams or whatever you want to call it, it makes a lot of sense that it would happen. And then, the fact that he goes back and visits Summerhall too, I mean, obviously it's a tragedy, place where he's born, but there's a lot more there, a lot more. So, yeah. All right. Well, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. A little taste of.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a taste of what we may be doing more with. That's what Raven's Nest was kind of like. We, can take us in all sorts of different directions. So I guess as we, go forward after a Game of Thrones, we're hoping to get more Ravens like that. We're hoping to pull out some of the old theories and go back over them and see now, knowing what we know in the show, how they tie together. Sir Matt?
It's great. That was a great Raven. Yeah. I'm just thinking about it all now. It's like all the different scenarios.
You're going to be thinking about it for days.
I am, yeah. I'm like, we may have to come back and revisit that Raven, actually. So,
okay.
Anywho, it is kind of time here to close up shop and say farewell, Sir Ezra. We want to thank you guys for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 70, Jon 9.
Yep, absolutely. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.